If time was needed for distance, with absence has made the heart grow fonder. The marvel of music, socially engineered on purpose, so there would be no comparison, no thoughts to ponder. The world is riddled with riddles, billions of people trying to figure out life. It's pitiful. Enter our world. This podcast, this journey, the second phase of an analogy. This is a prelude for the story of Season 4. The Doneson Podcast. You better tell somebody.
Donesonians, the freedom of creativity has arrived. Let's take this journey from the US to Brazil, through India onto Europe, from Asia onto the transatlantic and throughout the world. We'll call it the dark side. The Doneson Podcast is in full effect. Watch it, feel it, listen to Shaana Montana, Uncle Rico, Rod, and Rollo. Let's put it where the goats can get
This is how I feel. Only God knows where this is going. We are on the heels of something so important. This podcast has many seasons, but it won't be the last. I'm listening to the Doneson Podcast. I said, I'm listening to the Doneson Podcast. Oh, yeah. It's a Doneson Podcast.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. All right, I had a career before a career.
You ain't no singer.
Not at all. I sound like some haters.
Well, ain't no hater. You just telling the truth.
That part. Now, I have a cousin that watches the podcast.
Okay.
A little cousin.
Okay.
And
how little? Itty bitty bitty bitty?
Yeah, between 8 and 14, can I say.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, pre-millennial, right? And his name is Jerry. Hey, Jerry, how you doing out there? And he wants me to use one of his jokes for opening line.
All right.
I said, okay, Jerry, I'll do it.
Okay, do it.
This is for you, Jerry.
Just for Jerry.
Right. Okay, so this is to the staff. Why? This is a riddle. No, damn. Did Jerry give me a riddle? No, he gave me a joke. Okay. So Jerry said, why did a scarecrow win a Nobel Prize?
I know this one.
You know Benjamin? You know? Yep. What is the answer?
He was outstanding in his field. Good one.
Because I was stumped.
Yeah. Glad you're here. We did not
Glad
know.
you're here.
Oh my gosh. The voice that you're hearing right now is our guest. His name is Benjamin Holmes. He is a licensed clinical social worker and owner of the Benjamin Holmes Counseling Group.
Okay.
He lives here in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife and 3 kids.
Okay.
Benjamin holds a degrees in religious studies, organizational leadership, and social work.
Okay.
And he began his private practice in 2013 and has worked with hundreds of clients from all walks of life.
Okay.
And hopefully soon to be Montana.
I was about to say, Rod, are you a client?
I knew it was coming
if
first.
business ever gets slow.
I had to get Montana before she got
I was going to get you. I was waiting.
All right. So don't forget to tune in every Monday for the audio version of the Doneson Podcast and every Wednesday on our YouTube channel titled The Doneson Podcast.
All right now.
But before we get started here, it's time for the Doneson Riddle Show.
It's the Doneson Riddle Show. You have 60 seconds to solve the riddle, which is an ample amount of time. If you answer wrong, a dummy's getting electrocuted. And here's your host, Rod.
A dummy named Rod.
Well, hopefully Benjamin can help you guys on this one
I
as
hope
well.
so.
Now, you guys get
a lot of pressure.
60 seconds to solve this riddle.
Okay.
If not, dummy's getting electrocuted.
Okay.
All right. Here it is. Here we go. Now, David's father has 3 sons. Snap, Crackle, and
Pop.
Nope.
What? It ain't Pop?
No.
All right, say it again.
All right. Now, really listen to this. David's father has 3 sons.
Oh, David. Snap, Crackle, and
You
David.
got it. You
Okay.
got it.
Like,
Good job,
Montana.
Montana.
Yeah, the family
Good
tree stuff be
job.
getting me.
Shaana Montana. Let's get it.
Montana, here they go again. Another later. This is what they wrote. A little oh yeah, a little oh no, and a lot. You gotta be kidding me. Montana is a crazy. Even though I'm feeling sad, it's only one day. I turn into you. It makes my day. I'm watching your YouTube on a Wednesday, listening this letter so funny. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right. So today's letter is titled Pandora's Box. And the writer, we got a question already,
You damn skippy.
You got a Pandora box.
Pandora box and they are anonymous, I bet, right?
They are, of course.
But you want to open Pandora box. You want to hide. Okay, all right, I'm done. Okay,
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
But they are from Marietta, Georgia, and they are a millennial. They said between ages 26 and 41. So let's get right to it.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with relationships after relationships, not just relationships when it comes to 2 people, but the challenges with relationships on my job, social settings, family gatherings. I had them in school. I know what I have to face, and it seems like what I have to face is scary. I have to open myself up. I have to open myself up to my past to figure out why. I don't like to be corrected. I always have a need to be right. I'm always walking out. I'm always yelling, raising my voice. And my favorite word is the word period.
Really?
That's what she said. Or he. When I finish talking, nothing else should be said. I'm done
Lord.
with it.
That's a narcissist. What ain't right where?
Or has narcissistic traits and
Yeah,
carry
what
on.
you said. Good
I think
grief.
I believe I might need help now. Nobody's picking up the phone anymore. I can only hold somebody on the phone unless I'm talking about gossip. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being empty. But I know one day I'm going to have to face me. I don't want to classify it as evil, but this is what I have done. Maybe if I can hear you read it in the letter, then I can confront it. Y'all put your seatbelts on. Buckle up.
Wow.
Bullet 1, I have slept with my sister's husband.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Bullet 2, I made up gossip that I knew was lies, but it led to them getting fired. Bullet 3, I told someone that I loved them just to get married, but I only did it because I was tired of being broke.
Oh, Lord.
This is America. Bullet 4, growing up, I watched my mother get beat by every man she dated. Number 5, I listened to my mom cry in the shower through the door because she was being treated so badly on her job that she couldn't leave. And bullet 6, I watched my mom steal from clothing stores. She would say, try this on, and we would walk out so I wouldn't go without. So I'm asking, should I be open or should I open?
My gosh.
That's a lot.
You lying us a
Ben,
lot.
I know you're guess. You want to go first on there,
Ben should go.
Montana?
Ben is the professional.
Do you want to warm up, Ben? first?
Well,
Come on.
so first off, the person
Yeah.
in the letter, obviously has some insight, which is good because they're writing the letter.
Yeah.
And y'all threw around narcissistic traits, things like that. And that's really common to think like, oh, whenever somebody's like, this is it, period, done, you don't get to say anything else. You're like, well, that's kind of narcissistic. What I hear, though, is something else called borderline personality disorder.
Tell us more.
And borderline personality disorder is a personality disorder kind of the hallmark kind of catchphrase of borderline is, I hate you, don't leave me. So I'm going to create chaos, I'm going to create drama, and then I'm going to be the victim, and it's your job to come and take care of me. And when you don't, I'm going to split you off into categories of you're either all good all the time, you're the savior, or you're, can I cuss on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
You're the biggest piece of shit that ever walked the earth, and I'm done with you, and you're just out, you're done.
Okay.
But the people that they do that to, it's their fault because they didn't soothe me. They didn't care for me the way that I needed to be cared for. And so borderline personality disorder, I'm assuming she, but he or whoever, they're ticking off on trauma. Okay. They're checking the box of constant lifelong history of relational dysfunction and difficulty. And and it's wonderful that this person is opening up and writing the letter because they have some insight that they're not being very effective in the world. And so the assumptions of working with someone with borderline personality is this: everyone wants to do better than what they're doing.
Right.
Given the right set of skills, everyone would do better. So the problem is not a moral failing. The problem is not a quality of person issue. It's a skills deficit issue. So we work with people with borderline personality on first setting boundaries with them as a client or as a family member, and then we work with them on just gaining more effective skills because they really, you can tell this person, they want connection, they want to be loved, they want to be in healthy interactions and relationships with people, but they don't have the skills to do it.
Okay.
Probably because largely contributed by the way that this person was raised, was seeing a mom that was abused, seeing a mom that was powerless and helpless over their situation, and a mom that kind of exploited them and used them to, shoplift and steal.
Or being just left out there. Just
so
defend for themselves.
And stop me if I'm taking over, but one of the things that's really important to understand about a person who comes from this type of experience is what children's brains do in their environment is they're constantly scanning, and everything that happens to them and around them, they're making it to mean something about them. So probably this person, when they were really young, they weren't thinking necessarily just that mom is unsafe or mom is trouble or mom has problems, but they were thinking, well, all these unsafe, problematic, terrible, scary things are happening to me, so I must somehow deserve it. This is just what I get.
Wow.
And so they grow up with this disorganized type of attachment to themselves.
Blaming themselves?
Well, and it's like a subconscious thing to where they blame themselves. And so one of Carl Jung's famous quotes is, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it directs our lives and we call it fate. Wow. And so this unconscious bias that this person has against themselves sounds like they don't deserve love. Even though explicitly or consciously they're like, that's just really all I want, and that's where the I hate you, don't leave me. They have these subconscious drives and behaviors that get in the way of them having what they kind of consciously, explicitly see everybody else seeming to have.
And they won't.
And they want it. But it's a skills issue.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense.
You said something earlier, and I'm going to get to you, Montana. You said something earlier that I understood but probably didn't understand is when, before you counsel someone, you have to set boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
What does that entail, or what does that mean?
So, especially people with borderline personality disorder, they don't like it when a person says, like, this is how far you get to come into my life.
Wow.
And so whenever I'm working with someone with borderline personality, one of the first things that I just explain is I'm not the therapist you get to call in the middle of the night for a 15-minute coaching session. And I set limits around substance use in sessions. I set limits around, like, yeah, our sessions are 50 minutes long, and they're called doorknob confessions, to where like the client's at the door getting ready to leave, and they're like, oh, by the way, and then they drop this bombshell on you, and you're just like, well, that's our time. We don't go past 50 minutes.
Right.
And so not every therapist is like that. Like, I don't do what's called dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm DBT informed, but I in no way claim to do full fidelity DBT. Whereas a full fidelity DBT therapist would set that support up to where you can call me for a 15-minute coaching session. We'll go through a skill to help you get through a situation. My life just isn't set up with that, with having young children and a wife that would not be okay with me being on call 24/7 to people. Yeah.
Right. Montana, what do you think about this letter?
I think a lot. I think also just in everything that you just mentioned as far as childhood trauma and understanding, if I was to think back like as a kid, like going through stuff and then internalizing that as like, this is happening because of me, because I guess as a kid.
You thought that, Montana?
No, I'm just saying that I guess I'm thinking like kids don't have the wherewithal to like determine that because mom is in an abusive relationship, that's not your fault. But because you're seeing it, you may internalize it and wind up how she is in this letter. So being said a whole lot, all I'm gonna say is, sis, that little last part you was talking about, you wanted to confront it as far as sleeping with your sister husband and stuff. Wow. I don't even know if you need to tell nobody that. Like, you told us, but I don't know if that's gonna solve your problems if you want to, what's
just
it?
got a sister man.
Like, yeah. You know, like if you were like, what's the Narcotics
Whatever coming clean though.
Nah. I don't know if she on pills like the last episode.
Okay.
But when it comes to addiction, they say you're supposed to go through the 12 steps of recovery. And one of the steps is like making amends and stuff.
It's step 9.
Okay, yeah, so
it's quite a ways.
Yeah, so
before.
sis, I just don't want her to jump out there starting now with this. So all I'm gonna say is that I just hope she gets the help that she needs. I think Benjamin said a lot that I can agree with, and she got some work to do, because I don't know how if she stays in this space where she is, he or she exactly when they wrote this letter, then they aren't going to have any healthy relationship. So I think this is, again, the first step, like the other letter, taking that ownership and now doing something about it.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best, Anonymous.
What you see.
What you think about this letter, man?
Pretty much the same. But, I want to relate to experience that happened in my life when I was a kid.
We get into the nitty gritty.
No, serious. I remember telling my mother that my daddy don't love me like he loved my brother. And this what transpired. My brother's older than me. I'm the middle child, so he's older than me, and he's a teenager now. So my daddy gave him a watch for his birthday.
Because he's a teenager.
He's a teenager.
Yeah.
I didn't get no watch for my birthday.
Right.
I'm mad.
Yeah.
So I tell my mom, Dad don't love me like he loved Gene. He get Gene a watch. He didn't give me no watch. He give me a little dump truck.
How old were you at the time,
5 years under my brother.
What you gonna do with a watch?
I don't know, but looking at it, you know what I'm saying? A watch is better than what I got.
Yeah.
And that's how I responded.
Right.
Yeah.
She said, don't say that. Your daddy loves you.
Yeah.
Your daddy loves you. But you ain't ready for no watch. But I didn't understand. I didn't comprehend it at the time. You know what I'm saying? But, people take different situations in life and they put their own perspective on it and they roll with it.
Yeah.
That's how they go. And that's what I did. As a little kid, I remember it vividly. And my mama said, no, son, don't say that. Your daddy loves you.
Does that line up, Ben, that what he's saying, that a lot of kids or siblings go through that? Or?
Yeah, I think people just in general, exactly what he just said, is they go through an experience. And objectively, we look back and we're like, Montana's like, what were you going to do with a watch? You were like 9 years old or whatever it was. So the problem was not the experience of not getting a watch. The problem was the experience that you had with your thoughts and what you determined was true about you because of not getting a watch.
Right.
So it's not like people don't bother us.
Right.
Situations don't bother us. It's how we interpret and the conclusions and
that we draw in our own mind.
The thoughts that we agree with in our minds about these situations. And all of those thoughts filter through our programming. So like the person in the letter has a programming that says, I'm not safe. People don't show up for me. And so they're filtering through, a lot of things that are and then they project that back out into
Right,
the world through
right.
their behaviors and pushing
Yeah.
people away. And
Right.
like, so the good news for you though is that you had a mom who was there. She saw what you were going through, and she knew how to soothe you.
Yeah.
And so then you didn't really grow up thinking, well, Dad doesn't love me.
Right.
Hopefully.
Right. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Like the I don't know if I should say this, like the Menendez brothers.
Ain't going there. We
They
ain't
trying to
gonna do
get me to
that.
leave this show
You know
every
what I'm
week.
saying? No.
I'm sorry,
I
yo,
love
I'm
my
sorry.
parents. I love my parents.
All right. Good stuff. Now, drugs affect the way your body and mind function. They can change how you feel, think, and behave. Now, people take drugs for different reasons in different ways. For one to fit in where you can get in is to belong or for a lack of purpose. So, y'all take a listen to this.
All of you are gifted at something. The problem is you keep wanting your gift to be what somebody else's gift is. Identify your own gift because you already have it. Here's the way you identify your gift. Your gift is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. If you fry chicken better than everybody you know, you ought to be somewhere frying chicken. People make millions of dollars frying chicken. Popeyes, Kentucky Fried Chicken, El Pollo Loco. All they doing is making chicken. They just found a way to do it. Somebody just started making chicken. You know the story of Marie Callender's? Do you know what this woman did, man? She worked for a diner, a greasy spoon diner that was going out of business. It was her only job. She was a single mother. It was her only job. She needed that job, but the diner was gonna close. So she went to the owner of the diner and said, let me bake one of my pies. People like my pies, and see if I can help you make a little money. He said, whatever, bring it in. She bought one pie in. They sold every slice. The next day, the people came in and asked for the pie. She had to go home and make another pie. The next day, so many people asked for the pie, she had to make 4 pies. Then people started saying, can I buy my own pie? She made so many pies at this store that she eventually saved her money and put a commercial oven in her house. Now she done made so many pies, the dude's shop, he ain't selling hamburgers no more. All he's selling is them damn pies. That's how Marie Callender got started. Marie Callender now has over 120 restaurants. You can't go to no frozen food section without seeing Marie Callender in there. You know what she started with? A pie. One pie. Your gift will make room for you. Now, what is your gift? It's the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. That's your gift. Quit running away from the gift. Your gift will make room for you. Stop trying to be something.
Right.
That's a word.
I get it.
That's prophetic.
I get it. Yeah.
So the reason that was played is the same reason that we have Benjamin here today, is what happens before the storm. And I'm a firm believer that, and I could be wrong on this, I'm just a firm believer that if you know your gift, if you know your purpose, maybe you can avoid certain pitfalls in life. But I think that people don't open up to themselves and learn about themselves before the addiction starts and before the storm arrives. That's why we have an incredible guest today, Mr. Benjamin Holmes, that hopefully will walk us through some of the pitfalls and try to not avoid the storms, because the storms are going to come, but prepare for the storms, and we can best handle the storms. And because of this, we have a list of questions that we're going to ask Benjamin, and so we can get some answers and help people that are out there. Now, I just want to start off and jump right into it. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having
being
me.
here.
This is great.
Definitely. Now, I just started off at top. Now, before any type of addiction starts, maybe there's a void that needs to be filled. Why should one seek a therapist, not necessarily for drugs, just for a therapist in general, such as yourself?
That's one. I think that everybody if you find the right connection with the right person, therapy can help just about, any situation. It's not the end all be all though. There are legitimate, psychiatric situations in which you need to be under the guidance of a medical provider who can prescribe medications. And so I just want to kind of set that. I'm not a believer that therapy is the silver bullet that's going to solve all of humanity's problems. Right. But why should someone seek a therapist? It's to be able to show up whole in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think that concept there of wholeness, I have an interesting take on it. Yes. Because there's parts of us, all of us, that we'd rather people just not know too much about. Mm-hmm. And so what that, like Carl Jung and some others, Jordan Peterson, they kind of talk about that as being like the shadow. That side of us that we see as like chaos or scary, or like the a guy that I follow on Instagram, Connor Beaton, calls it the hurt locker of pain. Yeah. And everything that we want to disown about ourselves and about our story, we push it off there so that we can show up in the world bright and light and acceptable and lovable. And then people come into therapy oftentimes and they're like, I hate this thing about me. I do this thing, or I have these thought processes, or I have depression, I have anxiety, I have addiction, I have problems in relationships. And they seek to like kill that part of themselves. Mm-hmm. That's what they think. They're like, I just need to get rid of this. If I just got rid of this, everything would be fine. Yeah. And that's really not where I come from as a therapist. The idea is to not kill any part of yourself, but to learn how to accept and embrace and love all parts of yourself. Because we all have a shadow. Mm-hmm. Outside of my window is this big grassy area that like gets full sun for most of the day on West End in Nashville. And the analogy is I'll have a client look out there and be like, imagine we're just like out there with a group of 3 or 4 people and it's full sun, and we're out there and we're just all having a conversation, and I look down and I notice my shadow and I start to freak out, and I'm like, shit, everybody's gonna see my shadow. And so I start like fidgeting and moving around and like trying to make sure, and I'm looking, I'm like not in the interaction anymore. I've stepped out of the interaction. I'm worried about what everybody else is thinking about my shadow. And then I'm perceiving that no one else has a shadow because no one else seems to be freaking out about theirs. And I'm consumed with hiding a part of me that everybody has. That's what anxiety looks like a lot of times. It's just kind of living in my head about all the shit that I don't want anybody to know about me, or thinking that everyone is better than me, and I'm comparing, and no one else has the type of problems I have, and so I'm just in my head about it, and that's what anxiety looks like. The other side of that coin is depression. Well, what's the only way to get rid of a shadow? Just turn off all the lights.
Now,
and just be in the darkness, be in complete darkness. And the analogy of being out on the lawn, there are some trees that have some shade, and you can get out of the shadow. You can hide your shadow, but you got to go away from everybody else, and you got to be in the shade. You got to be where there's no light hitting you. And then everybody's looking at you like, why are you over there? Why don't you come over there? And you're like, no, I'm fine. And that's what that isolation of depression looks like.
When you isolate yourselves from family members, friends, or just...
Yeah, and so I think it comes down to just understanding that we all got stuff. Everybody has it.
Yeah.
And, in therapy, we seek to help clients just accept that. Accept that there is no best anyone at anything. Right? And it's just you showing up as whole as possible in the world, knowing that you're just as good, just as valuable, just as worthy to be there as anyone else.
Wow. Now, go ahead, huh?
Yeah. So you do this this is your job. This is what you do. So if you have someone to come into your office and you immediately discern that they're suffering from a state of depression or anxiety, how do you address them?
Like a person. Like one of the things that I try really hard to do is to always treat people like people and not like patients. Right. And so it's a fine line, but I like to think that I walk it well between exposure and disclosure. Like I'll disclose things about my own life and things that I struggle with to try and become human and let this person know, like,
They're not
just,
alone.
We're just two people here.
Right, okay.
I also regard every client that walks into my office as the expert in the room. I don't know anything about this person or their experience. I'm the professional, and I believe I have a certain set of skills and tools that I can help this person, but they're the expert. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who know what they want, or at least they want to know what they want. Mm-hmm. You know, and so my job as a therapist is to just give this person maybe the only hour a week that they have to where no one needs anything from them. Mm-hmm. And they can show up and they can be whole with me. They can tell me stuff that I can't tell anybody.
Right.
You know, with a few exceptions, you know, like when it comes to the safety of a child or a vulnerable adult, something like that. But they can read off a list of bullet points like that letter of I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and I've done this. And I'm just like, all right, well, people do shit. And you happen to get to be people today.
Right.
So you have a good poker face.
I don't blush at a whole lot at this point. I mean, after about a decade of sitting in rooms with people,
You're like, I've heard that. I heard that.
Yeah, but people find that in and of itself to be therapeutic, to where they come in and they think they're going to shock me. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna react to them the way that their family members or their friends or their spouse would react if they knew this about them. And I'm just like, yeah, I heard that last Tuesday.
Yeah,
you know, or something similar. Right. I don't mean to minimize it,
right?
But to just normalize the fact that we've all got a shadow.
Yeah, well,
shadow.
that is. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think that they have the only shadow, like you were saying.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes addiction, going back to your question or your topic, that's one of the things that makes addiction flourish. Because whenever I think I'm the only one with the shadow, then what I'm living in is shame. Wow. And where shame exists, addiction can flourish.
Wow.
So shame is, I just am worthless. I am unlovable. And so I don't know an addict alive today who, if you said, well, when you picked up that first drink, is this where you want it to end up?
Right.
You know, completely powerless and with unmanageability running rampant in your life? No. They found that as a tool that was useful to get something for them that they thought they needed.
Wow.
Whether it was a social lubricant or, you know, courage, or it took the edge off of anxiety, or it helped them fit in, and I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, but I've heard, you know, people who struggle with that say, like, it was just like the first time it hit my lips, it was just like I grew wings. Wow. You know, like I you know, and so I do believe there's a genetic component, you know, to where some people are just predisposed. I think that's pretty well documented.
In the bloodline or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, what are some of the challenges that men face in life that you can help with or relate to?
A lot of things come to mind. I think one of the, you know, kind of the more obvious ones is that we just aren't taught that there is a whole myriad of words to describe what's going on with us. I'm either happy or pissed off, and maybe on my dad's funeral I'll be sad.
Right. Wow.
You know, like sadness is reserved for this, like the most, you know, but there's hundreds of words to describe how a person might feel. And so I think one of the issues that men face is coming up in, and it's changing, by the way, but coming up in a culture of masculinity that we have to be hard, we have to be tough, we have to be solid, we have to be dependable and reliable, and to be vulnerable seems counterintuitive to those qualities that are
weak, not a man.
Right. Yeah, like be a man. You know, boys don't cry.
Man up. Yeah.
Man up.
That's
Walk
all we
it
heard
off.
all our
Rub
life.
some dirt on it.
Yeah.
So that's one, and then out of that, because high emotional intelligence also will lead us into heightened self-awareness of what we need and the courage to be able to ask for it. So I think a lot of men don't know what they want, or at least how to articulate it. And so then they sit on these things and they're unfulfilled, not because they have like unwilling family members or friends or partners, but because they don't know how to put themselves in a place of vulnerability to say like, hey, I really need more of this, or I really need less of this, and this is why. And to really kind of have that conversation about our needs.
And that's why it's so important to have a therapist, so you won't necessarily get hurt or just randomly calling up people.
Yeah. I think it is important to have a therapist, because a therapist is, again, that one person who's going to kind of help you get connected to these parts that we just aren't told that we could have access to in many cases.
Oh, wow.
Let me ask you something. Because we're human. We're human beings. Do you, in your practice, how long you been practicing?
9 years.
9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Through your 9 years of practice and meeting different individuals, do you think that human beings, as we are, because we're human, come to a point where there's just certain things we're just not going to say regardless about ourselves?
There are certain things that we're not going to see about ourselves or say about ourselves.
Admit.
Oh, admit. Yeah, I think people do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept to try and think about, can you really lie to yourself?
Right.
Because everywhere I go, there I am, and I got to deal with me.
Right. We got to deal with
I
it.
know my shit.
And everybody know their shit. Right. Everybody know their shit.
Right.
Yeah.
No, somebody else might know it.
Right.
Or might not,
Right.
be aware. But that, so I do think that there are things that people just live their lives sitting on, and they hide. And
they're going to take it to the grave.
And they'll take it to the grave. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that happens all the time.
Right.
I mean, I wonder what could be that bad where you want to take.
Man, you never know.
You got anything on that?
Hell yeah, and you do too. Yeah, you do too.
Well, the question is how many,
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm just serious.
And I don't even think, like, when you say that, not even always thinking about like something you've done that you want to take to the grave. But to Unc's point, I think about being in a space of like on my own journey of like healing and therapy, certain things that you just struggle to say out loud.
Yeah.
Like I'm scared of that.
You just ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, you just
like, will not
I think I'm now getting to a place where I'm comfortable with admitting certain things, but I think up until probably less than 6 months ago, it was stuff like I'm not gonna own that. Like I know that I'm gonna own it to myself, but I ain't
not to
gonna own it to
nobody
nobody
else.
else.
Right.
And what was that, Montana?
She ain't gonna
You
tell.
can go to hell. He thought he was gonna get me.
Yeah, he thought he was gonna get
You
you.
gotta be quick on Montana, boy. She's slick. Oh man!
Yeah, wow, this good.
But that leads me to, I do want to ask this question because this person was talking a lot about, relationships and stuff. And, sometimes relationships cannot be salvaged. We know that. We think about whether it be a romantic or with a parent, sibling, whatever the case may be. So, and it can leave people feeling a lot of different emotions, whether that be hopeless, angry, sad, whatever, How do you feel like people should approach that if you find that you have a relationship that is just, that relationship is just gone. It is what it is. And I have to deal with the aftermath of that. How should people handle something like that?
That comes up a lot.
Really?
I've got clients who it seems like they're coming in and they want me to just tell them, I think you should get divorced.
Oh.
They just want me to say it.
Wow.
And I never do. But yeah, I mean, man, relationships are so impossible if you think about it, especially marriage. And I am married. I am happily married. But you think about a marriage and you get married at a certain point in time in your life and you're with this person. And then experiences happen and circumstances change and the world evolves and you are growing with it. And you're just supposed to like still be compatible and line up on things 20, 30 years down the road. So unfortunately, and there's a lot of heartbreak there, but it still kind of comes back to like being whole.
Okay.
Right? Showing up whole as
First?
What do you mean?
Showing up whole first before you get married, or working through being whole during the
Yes. So, yeah. So the idea is, you know yourself really well before you get married. That way you won't lose yourself after you get married, because a lot of people do that. a lot of people, wake up one day 5, 6, 7 years into a marriage and they're like, I don't like doing 90% of the shit that I do.
Right. Hello, somebody.
So know yourself and have a very strong attachment to yourself before you get married. Like, know what you like to do, know who you like to do it with, and know what your limits are. Know if you want kids or not. Know what you're
about to shout over here.
Right. So
Go ahead, Montana. Feel comfortable.
Keep talking.
So anyways, going back to the question of like, what do you do whenever it's done, it's over? You be honest about it. And that is the hardest thing in the world, because honestly, honesty causes more pain in many cases, but it's like ripping the Band-Aid off type pain. It's necessary. And I sit with people and I understand how hard it is to really care about a person and not want to hurt them and not want to, destroy their lives. And when you throw kids into the mix, like, what do we do with that? How can I justify selfishly leaving this relationship and blowing up their lives? And so it's a very, very complicated thing. And I would just say, again, it's a person by person. There's no blanket answer to say what you should do, in your specific situation, because it's just so, people are just so unique in their circumstances. But it's again, like, go see a therapist, check all the boxes to try and exhaust all of the options if you value the relationship.
Right.
Go to marriage counseling, go to therapy, go to retreats, read books, do the worksheets, because something like a divorce or separating from a very long-term or significant partner, it's kind of like, you glue two pieces of construction paper together and let that dry, and then a separation or a divorce feels like trying to rip those apart. Parts of you is going to get left behind, and parts of them is going to get left behind. Wow. And it's just, you're not going to be the same when you get through that. Now, you can be different, and different can be better in many cases.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it can leave everybody in shambles.
It could.
But you can't repair.
It could. Yeah. But I think everybody, nothing is final. I don't want to be like I don't want to sound like a nihilist here, that divorce is the end all be all to everyone, and it's just, you're just can't recover. People do recover, and people end up better off many times. But again, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of knowing yourself. It takes a lot of boundary setting, and just communicating.
Yeah.
I wish that there was like an easy answer there. I feel like
that was a great answer.
I got another question.
That was a great answer.
So, what if? Okay, say you got a marriage, and one of the spouses wants to try to work it out and communicate, and the other one is resisting.
It's over. No, I'm playing.
You're not wrong.
What you said?
I said it's over.
Yeah.
It takes two fully invested people to make something like a marriage work. It only takes one to bring it apart.
Because I ain't got to ask you to leave you.
Right.
I'm gone.
Right.
Yeah. So if you've got one partner is like, I want to work on this, I want to try, I want to work on, and the other one's kind of like ambivalent, like, well,
I don't give a shit,
or not even ambivalent. They're just like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Then it's over.
Yeah.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
But isn't it? They always said that if you're in a relationship, once you know that someone is checked out, they was checked out 3 or 4 months ago, right?
Women, anyway.
Yeah, women.
Longer than that.
I mentally check out before, like, I'll be sitting next to you for a year.
First
I'm
date?
gone.
Montana
I
be
might
on the
check out
first
by
date.
the first date. Halfway through it, after I decide what I'm going to eat off the menu.
And you just stay there.
Yeah, I just stay there and I finish my meal. But I stayed in situations where the relationship was over, but I know for me personally, breakups in the past have been very hard and debilitating for me. And because I didn't want to go through the grief of it, I was like, let me try to just stay here and work through what it's going to feel like. So it's like I grieved the relationship while I was in it. And then I broke up with the person. And so by the time we broke up, like, I wasn't sad or nothing, because I had went through all that while I was still sitting there next to them.
I think you should scold her, Benjamin,
You know?
right now in front of millions
You
of
gotta do
people.
what you gotta
listening.
do.
Scold her, Benjamin.
You gotta do what you gotta do. And more women than not do that. We gone
really-
mentally and emotionally before we leave physically. Long gone. Yeah, we been gone.
Okay.
We just wait. We don't decide and then we leave. I might be
I'm
telling
learning
our
something
secrets.
here.
I'm sorry, but we mentally and emotionally leave before we physically do. Like we make the decision, we talk it out to whoever therapist, friend, whoever in our mind. And then most times, I would say for me and people I know,
Are you just waiting until you feel apathetic? Like you
I'm
don't
just-
have that energy of the grief anymore? And
I don't
you're
have
just like,
that.
all right.
Yeah, or I get to a place where it's like and most times the partner does something else to like activate it, to push it forward. Like I'm thinking about it. I know I'm probably going to do
You're
this.
just like, I just need a reason.
Yeah, and then you do one thing.
You're waiting for a confirmation.
What was the reason?
You waiting
I was
for the
waiting that
confirmation.
reason.
You waiting for the
And most
confirmation.
times, seriously, something has always happened. Like I knew I wasn't supposed to be here anyway, but
Yeah.
this thing happened. And it's like, all right,
That's
let me
my
go.
confirmation.
But it's easier to just to leave first.
It's
mentally.
justification.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's- yeah. So that is, you could save yourself a whole lot of time by just showing up whole.
Yeah, I mean,
When
I don't
you
play them
know-
games no more.
Yeah, when you know,
so-
you know.
Oh, you as of
So
As of 25 minutes ago.
can I clarify something about when I say show up whole?
Yes,
'Cause I
please.
feel like I'm sounding like, oh, woo, woo, be whole, wholeness. What I mean by that is like this concept of like holiness. Like pulling on my religious studies background. We look at this God in the Bible who's literally never apologized for anything. Can y'all think of a time?
not one.
Not one.
You never read the Bible, but keep going.
But look at some of the shit that happened.
Yeah.
Like, let's just take the flood. Now, whether you think it's allegory or it's actually historical fact,
Or whatever. Okay.
there were babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were children
Drowning.
drowning.
Yeah.
There were elderly people. There were disabled people drowning,
Right.
right? And we say like, oh, God is so good,
Yeah. That's the point.
right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of other stories where we're like, yeah, God, that God is awesome if that's the way it is. But the point is that God seems to show up in his story as both light and dark, according to the way that we can understand what's happening. Like we say, like, yeah, it's kind of horrific to, drown babies.
Right.
And there's no apology. There's a rainbow, a promise that he's never going to do it again. But like, does that,
Is that enough?
like when
That
somebody,
rainbows means until next time.
but there's no apology. It's just
Yeah.
like, this is who I am, and I show up, and I'm going to call myself holy. I'm whole. And so that's what I mean is not being sorry. I think that if there's something that we have done that has caused harm to someone else, then we say we're sorry. We are apologetic. But those things about us, the things that we choose to allow the world to shame us for, the thoughts that we have about, whether it's politics or religion or whatever it is, the judgments that we have about ourselves that we hide away. That's what I mean. It's like when you know yourself, just show up and know yourself. Just act on your set of values, and pursue that, because that's where you get, this congruent experience between your behaviors and your values, and that's a life worth living.
And I think that, to your point, a lot of people struggle with showing up whole, one, understanding what it actually means, but because they go through these relationship experiences. And me personally, I've dated people that told me you should act a certain way, you should be a certain way. And so I carried that from one relationship to the next. So I wasn't showing up authentically as myself, because in every relationship, I was made to feel smaller and smaller and smaller. So by the time I got to, say, the last relationship I was in, I was my smallest self. And I said I was whole because I had made up this idea of being whole based on other people's opinions. So I think until you're able to release the fear of judgment and everything else that comes with that, and know that whoever Montana is fully, that if you do not like it, you do not have to be here. But if you like it, then I love it. And I think people really struggle with just understanding that, I'm not going to force you to be in the same space with me if you don't like me as is, because I think it's like, what does it say on the side view mirror? Objects on your car, objects may appear closer than what they are.
Yeah.
I think people see you from afar and they like you, and then they get close up on you and they're like, I liked you over there, but now that I'm up close, I need you to change this. And then what we do is we start trying to change this. So I think people have to understand that once somebody gets close up on them, if you like me from over there, if you don't like me once you get close, then this is just not it. So I think that's the biggest struggle I would say for women. I feel like is just understanding, because too, with relationships, romantic anyway, we are a lot of times willing to conform and change and do anything for a relationship, especially as we get older. And that's when we stop being our whole self. So it's a lot to tap into there, but people, they gotta be willing to take the gloves off and be like, I am who I am, take it or leave it.
And some of my favorite clients have been men actually who have come in and they have no clue who they are. They have no clue what they like. They have no clue what their style is. And then they come in and they're getting out of a relationship and they think they're coming for heartbreak. And they're like, I don't know,
self-discovery.
And it ends up being like self-discovery to where, they find out that they like certain type of music, or they and so it can go both ways. And I just think that relationships are so difficult to navigate, and we tend to project onto our partners things that we want them to be responsible for fixing shit that they have no responsibility to fix. And so until we deal with those
don't
things,
even know it's broken.
Yeah.
Until we figure out who we are, we figure out what our value system is and what's most important to us about us, we go into relationships with these voids and wounds and everything, and then we project that onto our partner. And it's amazing how we end up finding like the one person in our area that is like the perfect trigger point for us. Isn't that weird?
We do. Find the worst match.
I have a question to Montana through Benjamin.
Okay.
So you don't have to say you, Montana.
Okay.
But as a collective, because when you first meeting a woman, you're catering to that woman.
Right.
So I don't understand why a woman can't be herself when a man is catering to that woman.
In the beginning.
Because he's infatuated with her beauty, right?
Yeah.
Somewhat, you know?
Yeah, true.
So what is the number one thing that you've heard from your female friends that they cannot be? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that they cannot be.
What is it? They can't be goofy. They can't be intelligent. They can't be.
They can't be doing too much. That's the word. And what that means is too much. You too loud. You drink too much. You go out too much. You kick it with your friends too much. You do too much. Why you gotta have a job and a podcast and a this and a that? They tell them you doing too much. So to your point, they show up initially, first date, getting to know each other. Everybody, I love all that stuff you do.
Right.
3 months in, I need you to dial it back. So I find that for my female friends a lot of times, because I would say a lot of them are ambitious like myself. They run into me and they say, you doing too much. They won't, especially I would say at my age of 10 to 21.
Oh, yeah, yes.
They want you to be, at home.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. They want you to be at home, go to work, come back. Go to work, come back. That's
you are from Mississippi, though.
Don't play with me.
All right.
But they just want you to be like this small, I feel like. And that's what we run into. But I think again, that's because
want you in a bubble, huh?
Yeah, we choosing the wrong dudes. That's
Ben, what do you think about that, Ben?
I think the phrase "misery loves company" comes, but that's not true. Misery loves miserable company.
This is true.
You ever been miserable and be around a bunch of happy people? Yeah. And you're just like, y'all can
people hate me.
Yeah. Right? Like, why y'all laughing so much? Right?
So the reason that phrase came to my mind is because small people don't like small people. Maybe you're just finding small people.
I was. You
all right. Well,
yeah. I got the resolution. Clay Thompson, if you watch it, but carry on.
It's just so common because again, we go back to like, what do people really want in this world? And they want belonging. Yeah. But what they do is they attempt to fit in. And Brene Brown says those are opposites.
Ooh, she does.
Fitting in and belonging are opposites. Because belonging is I show up. What's the word of the day? Whole.
This is who I am.
This is who I am.
And I know who I am.
And I find a community of people. It doesn't have to be just a romantic partner, but I find a tribe, or I find a group of people that I show up and my shadow is on full display.
Yeah.
And so is theirs, and nobody gives a shit. And we just accept. and we're happy, and we don't demand things from one another. And if our feelings are hurt by something, we just say, hey, that was shitty, don't do that again.
Right.
And they're like, I value the relationship more than I value my ability to continue to do that. So I'll try not to do that again. You know, or hey, I might do that again, and it's not personal, but I'll keep an eye on it. Right? We're just honest. Fitting in is the opposite of that. Fitting in is I look at this person and I decide for them, or maybe they've told me, but most often we decide for them what we think they want. And we start to conform. That's why people can get together and there's like this spark and there's this magic and compatibility seems to be at an all-time high. And then over some time, you go out of that infatuation stage of the relationship into this power struggle stage of the relationship about 6 to 9 months into it, to where you're like, why you do it that way? And we start to try and edit one another. Or one person has edited himself or herself to the point to where the other person's like, you're unrecognizable and unattractive because that is not who I fell for. But we decide for those people based off of our programming and the way that we think about ourselves and what we deserve and what we project out into the world. We decide for them that, no, as I wasn't good enough, so I had to be something else. So it's not just when other people try to edit us. We have our own insecurities that we need to deal with and know about so that we don't start editing ourselves and therefore sabotaging what could have otherwise probably been a great relationship.
And that probably can lead to alcoholism, drugs.
What?
Suppression, right?
So, the concept of it's.
I didn't see that.
Before the storm.
Well, he's bringing it back to where we first started. I love these rabbit holes. I love these types of conversations. But addiction is kind of a symptom of a greater problem of I don't feel good enough as I am. I'm unworthy, unlovable, inadequate, afraid, and I don't know how to deal with that. And at least I get some reprieve from it whenever I drink this drink or I take that drug. And then there's like a physiological component of dependence. Well, there's a dependence that comes in, and then there's the vicious cycle of dependence and increased tolerance. So I need more and more to get the same result, but I never get the same result. One of the things that you talk about from like someone in NA, Narcotics Anonymous, is they're chasing
the same high they get the first time.
And they'll never catch it again.
They'll never catch it again.
And so then they spend their lives chasing it.
That's how drug dealers get rich. Seriously.
I feel like Ben been living in my house, a fly on the wall, speaking to my life.
Well, you got a lot of flies, Martha.
You know what? You got one more strike.
He got one more shot. He gonna get him out.
When you friends with somebody, you tell stop doing shit. He got one more strike.
Man, that was good.
So Ben,
man.
I got a question here.
That was good.
Before we get there, I used to date this one girl, and she used to say to me, she's like, Rod, I love being around you. And I'm like, here we go. Lies. And she said, I was like, so why do you love being around me? She's like, because I get to be myself. And I'm like, huh? I was like, you got like 1,000 girlfriends. What do you mean you get to be yourself? And she said that if I would act goofy the way I'm goofy around you, my friends would disown me.
Oh, wow.
She needs different friends.
She definitely does.
I told her.
Because that's when I could really be myself out of anybody with my friends. Like,
and I'm like, wow. And I didn't even forget that. But on that note, like, is it possible to gain mastery over thoughts and emotions and behaviors without a therapist?
Anything is possible.
Anything, but not possible.
Anything is possible. I mean, people do the work in all kinds of different ways. There is no one right answer for a person to be able to live the life that they want to live.
Because the reason I say that, or I ask that question, is back in the day, if I would have a challenge in life, the first place I would go to would be YouTube.
There's a lot on there.
A lot. And it can send you down a rabbit hole. Because YouTube doesn't know you. It doesn't talk back to you. So you have to constantly search.
The difference between YouTube and a therapist is that your therapist should not be an echo chamber.
Right.
for what you already think about yourself. They should be they should be like a mirror reflecting back to you what they see as being objectively true, so that you can then see that and deal with it.
Right.
One of the best things about a therapist is they're able to show you your blind spots.
Right.
And just kind of like drop it on your lap and say, all right, now you go deal with that. And here's how.
Right. So Montana and I need to stop searching YouTube.
You know what?
He deflected on us what he's going through.
Always. That's his specialty.
Look, Montana let me use her cell phone one time, and my phone didn't work, Ben, and I needed to make a call out, and I was like, "What did Montana be looking at on YouTube?"
I got other sites I look at. What I look at ain't on YouTube.
It said everything they say about you is not true. I'm like, let me close this up real quick.
This man
saves the
lies so
search
much.
engine.
It don't make no sense to lie that much.
Yeah.
He lies so much.
Benjamin, as a therapist, have you ever approached somebody proactively to get them help?
No.
Okay.
No, this is therapy. I find is best from attraction versus promotion of word of mouth, things like that. But no, I've never looked at somebody and been like, you look like you could use a talk.
Or you've been in a room with somebody on a consistent basis, maybe it's family members or just friends and so forth, and be like, hey, you need to come talk to me.
Never to family members.
You don't
Never.
You don't want to do nothing like
that's
that,
why
man. I know better than that.
You know what? If I can confess, the wounded healer syndrome, up and down. So family members. I'm supportive. I will, but I point them to be like, well, you need to talk to somebody else about that, because I'm too close to friends, too close to family members to be objective for them and not get in it with them.
Right.
Okay. Now, we are a podcast, even though we may say some things that are out of whack, we are a podcast that is grounded spiritually. We all believe in God. Is there anything you would like to leave us with as far as about your faith journey that others could listen to and attach on to help them through life or becoming whole?
Ooh. Man, let's just let God be as original with us as he seems to be with everybody else.
Yeah.
Again, there's no one way in which God enters into a person's life and that's uniform to everybody.
There you go.
My experience with the spiritual doesn't have to have anything to do with yours.
Right.
And it can be as legitimate and valid and impactful to my life as it needs to be.
Right.
And I like to look at God from the perspective of he's a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't impose himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whatever that God is, whatever my concept of the spiritual is that he's available, right? When I can figure out what it is that I want. Right. Now, there's plenty of people on the internet who will argue and prove using a lot of really good logic and theology that I just said some heretical stuff.
Right.
But that's where I'm at, and that's okay, because they don't have to be there, or else what I just said was a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let God be as original with me as he seems to be with everybody else.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
pretty much it.
I wasn't ready for that question.
But that's pretty much it. But that was a good answer.
Yeah,
that was a very good answer. Very good answer. Yeah.
Well, on that note, Benjamin, thank you so much for coming to the show. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you guys. It's been a blast.
It's a Doneson podcast.